Hey, Mitch and Carrie here from This Is Us Today. Are you thinking about taking on a renovation project? Let me tell you what we use here in the way of tools in order to make this all happen. And stick around to the end of the video because I'm going to throw some tips and hacks at you to make it all easier. I just laid a few of these things out on the table so you could get a basic overview of what it takes to pull off one of these jobs. Of course, this is not everything, but this will get you a good start. There you go. Okay, you've decided to take on a renovation project. One of the very first things that you need to think about is, where do you put everything? You need a place to work out of. You need a place for your tools. You need a place to store stuff. You need benches. You need everything in a central location so that you don't have to go looking for things. First up on my list, and it starts with an A, is an air compressor. You've got to have one. The important thing here is the size of your compressor. This is a 20-gallon compressor, runs off of 110 volts. They do make small pancake compressors. I don't care for them. They cycle way too often and are mostly annoying, but you also don't need a large 60-gallon, 220-volt air compressor. One this size, portable, will roll around on wheels, so you can pretty much put it wherever you need it to be, and at any time you can just add additional hose to make it happen. Good air compressor, number one on my list. A good table saw is going to be very important to you. To me, a table saw is more versatile than a radial arm saw. Some people prefer a radial arm. That's not me, never been. I used to own one, hardly ever used it. I like table saws, and I think you will too. Get yourself one. Portable generator. This one happens to be a Generac 6500 watt, 6500 running watts, 10,000 start watts. But I have found that around here, just because the power's out, don't mean the work stops. So a generator is going to solve those problems. And plus, if you're in a place where you don't even have electricity yet, of course you're going to need one. And you can also, especially in wintertime, your power's out, you can heat your house by either backfeeding your electrical panel or installing a regular switch where it powers up the entire breaker box. So think about getting one, probably going to need one. A scroll saw. While you will not use them a lot, when you do need one, they will come in pretty handy. It allows you to cut nice little curves in your wood, or if you just need to cut a very short straight line on a very small piece of wood, you're probably going to want one. This is what's typically called a cutoff saw. This one happens to be made by a master mechanic, and owned this for 11 years and have built an entire shop using this, and it's never given me any problems. You can cut angles with it, and everything you need. So you're going to want one of these in your supply of tools. Can you hear me now? A good belt sander. Get you one, you'll use it many, 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 many times. While not a necessity, having a good router is going to be very helpful, especially if you're going to manufacture your own trim. Bought any trim lately? Know how crazy priced it is? These little babies will help you make your own trim, whether it be ceiling trim, baseboard trim, door trim, whatever kind of trim you want to make it look nice. Gotta have one of these. Renovating or most any kind of work requires a good shop vac. I use a Craftsman 16-gallon 6-horse, and it's been a good one for me, but you don't want to be without one, regardless of who makes it and what size. Very quickly, I'm going to discuss a variety of smaller tools that you're going to need. One of them, of course, is saws. This is a jigsaw, battery-operated Black & Decker 20-volt. I do not get any payment for promoting tool products. Black & Decker is still one of my favorites. I own DeWalt, I own Makita, I own Wen, I own Skill, I own a variety of tools, and I mostly, as far as a battery-operated tool, keep coming back to Black & Decker. Different size batteries, different amp-hour batteries, of course, sized differently, but all of the 20-volt max fits all 20-volt max tools. Saws. This particular one I've owned for, I don't know, probably at least 10 years, and I built an entire shop with this also. Very handy to have. You don't want to power up a cord. I actually prefer these battery operated ones over a corded one if you're just cutting a sheet of plywood or a OSB sheet. I'd rather use a battery operated one, and they work pretty good. This particular one, again, I dropped one day off of a roof of a building I was working on, and it broke the guard. So I ended up removing the guard, and at the same time I hot glued the safety switch so that you can get into really tight places without having to fiddle with trying to get the guard up or push the button at the same time you're working. Now, I don't recommend that you remove safeties. That's your protocol to decide whether you want to or don't want to. That's your thing. Personally, I hate safeties. Have no use for them. When I buy a new product, I remove the safeties almost immediately. Here's the one I bought to replace it. Of course, has push the button and has all its guards in place. If you have battery-operated tools, then a charging station is going to be a pretty good thing to have available. Additional sanders. This is the corded version, of course you can tell that. This is a corded version of a Black & Decker 4-inch DA sander, which stands for dual action. Not only does it rotate round and round, it goes back and forth at the same time. It's very, very handy to have. I prefer self-adhesive style sanders and discs. I really have tried hook and loop, but just don't like them, so I've always gone back to this. It happens to be a 6-inch piece of DA paper on a 4-inch sander, but it does work. So get yourself one. You're going to need it along with a handheld belt sander. Drills. Battery operated drills and screw guns. I call them screw guns. Technically, they're called ratcheting battery operated screwdrivers, but screw gun sounds better. Quick release, keeps your bits in place. Again, Black & Decker, 20-volt max. Die grinders, both the straight version and an angle die grinder. You're gonna I can't believe how often I use one of these, and a couple of places that just come to mind instantly is cutting plumbing in tight spaces, PVC or whatever, in order to get in at a perfect angle and cut something. That works very, very well. These are not as usable friendly, but you need a straight one on occasion also. String lines, or chalk lines, as they are sometimes called. Cutting a full-length sheet of OSB or plywood, snap a string line on it, got a straight line. Speed squares. I swear, one of the best inventions ever. Automatically puts your square edge on, plus a 45 angle. You're going to make pretty good use out of a bench grinder. I've always had one. You'll probably need one too.
Last up is staplers. Not last because they're the least important, but just simply last because this is how I got them on my list. Nail guns. Crown guns. Brad guns in a couple of different sizes. And a hand stapler. These are super easy for putting up installation. Brads have a small head for trim or work that you are going to see but don't want to see the head of a nail. Crown guns for putting up OSB, way easier than using screws and hold just as well. Different lengths of different lengths of crowns, depending on what you're using and the thickness of the product you're needing to install. And nail guns are good for framing work. Again, just find the length of nail that works for whatever you're doing. At the beginning of this video, I talked about tips and tricks. Here's one of them. If you have enough space on your wall, then this is something you really should consider. Just think about how often you're going to have to change the length of screw you're using, or you just need a little bit of different style of hardware. If you don't have something like this, then you're running to the store. How much time is that going to kill? This house is out in the country. That kills a lot of time. So it's just, to me, is very important to organize yourself, get a big selection of screws and whatever else you think you're going to need, and keep them on hand. Let me pan down just a little bit. Here's another tip. See these red trays? These are made out of metal. I attached them to the edge of the bench. What these originally were was out of an old grain elevator, and they were on a conveyor belt system to bring grain up to the top. And then they would dump and come back down again. I was able to obtain, probably 50 of these. I painted them up and attached them. Very, very handy. You don't have to have access to an old grain elevator, but it's just something to think about. You really need to have an organized area where you can keep tools of the trade, I guess you could call them, or products of the trade. Try it. Before I let you go, please consider this. You've got to have a good support system. A support system is very important. And when I say a support system, I'm talking about a loved one, someone who cares about you, someone who is willing to go way out of their way to make sure you are assisted in whatever needs done. Then you have made a great advancement in your journey to completing a huge task. My support system happens to be my wife. She holds things. She cleans. She does the laundry. She feeds me. She takes care of our dog. All of these things, without her, I would need to do myself. And let me just put it this way. I can't get by without her. I don't want to even try to get by without her. I would say that without her, the boat sailed and left me on a deserted island. Just yesterday, I drilled a hole in my finger. And who was there to help me bandage it up and take care of it? Because honestly, I don't have time to bleed. That's a trivia question to leave you with. The answer's coming up.